Hello boys and girls. Auntie Katie is dressed up in her birthday party gear because she is reading Mr. Birthday by Roger Hargreaves. Are you ready? It might be your birthday too. I hope you're wearing your birthday party gear. Mr. Birthday by Roger Hargreaves. The very best thing about birthdays, as far as Mr. Birthday is concerned, is birthday parties. Cards are nice, presents are good, but parties are great. Mr. Birthday likes birthday parties so much that he is never without his party hat. And Mr. Birthday is very good at organising birthday parties. He likes to make sure that everyone he knows has a party on their birthday. In just the last 3 weeks, he has organised a party with 2 cakes for Mr. Greedy, 1 cake for all the guests, and 1 for Mr. Greedy. Mr. Greedy would have liked that. A party with silly hats for Mr. Silly, because Mr. Silly is silly. And a party with no balloons for Mr. Jelly, because Mr. Jelly is scared of balloons. In case they go pop! This week, Mr. Birthday organised a very happy birthday party for Mr. Happy. He invited all of Mr. Happy's friends, including Little Miss Sunshine, Mr. Funny, Little Miss Lucky, and Mr. Bob. Mr. Birthday put up lots of balloons and a big banner saying, "Happy Birthday, Mr. Happy." And he organised fun party games for everyone to play. Happy birthday, Mr. Happy. There's Little Miss Sunshine, there's Mr. Birthday, there's Mr. Funny, there's Mr. Bump, and this must be Little Miss Lucky. Little Miss Lucky won Pass the Parcel, and then she won Pin the Tail on the Donkey. She's not called Little Miss Lucky for nothing. There she is, winning Pin the Tail on the Donkey. She got that spot on, didn't she? It was difficult to know who won musical chairs because Mr. Bump kept knocking over the chairs. There's Mr. Bump knocking over the chairs. After the party games, Mr. Birthday brought in a huge birthday cake. Mr. Happy smiled an extra wide smile and blew out all the candles in one go. Didn't leave one for luck. Then they all ate a feast of birthday cake, jam sandwiches, jelly and ice cream. Everybody had a wonderful time. There's Mr. Birthday presenting Mr. Happy with his birthday cake, Mr. Funny, and there's jelly and jam sandwiches and birthday cake. Oh, I think they might punch. When the party had finished, Mr. Happy thanked Mr. Birthday. "We mustn't forget that extra special birthday next week," added Mr. Happy with a wink as he said goodbye. There's Mr. Happy saying goodbye to Mr. Birthday. Mr. Birthday racked his brains as he walked home. "I wonder whose birthday Mr. Happy was talking about," he puzzled. But try as he might, no one came to mind. He looked in his diary when he reached home, but there was no one's birthday written in for the next week. Mr. Happy must have got it wrong, he reassured himself as he got into bed. Poor Mr. Birthday's puzzled. But the next day, Mr. Birthday kept overhearing things that seemed to suggest there really was a very important birthday coming up. He passed Mr. Worry in the street. "Oh my, oh gosh, whatever am I going to buy as a present for next week?" muttered Mr. Worry to himself. "What a worry!" There's Mr. Birthday and there's Mr. Worry. He overheard Mr. Forgetful, who was repeating, "I must not forget the party next week. I must not forget the party next week. I must not forget the party next week," over and over to himself. "I must not forget he said, and stopped mid-sentence. Then he looked at his hand. "The party. I must not forget the party next week." Poor Mr. Birthday was distraught. How could there be a birthday and a birthday party he knew nothing about? There's Mr. Forgetful. The following day, he decided that he would just have to go and ask Mr. Happy. Mr. Happy smiled, an even wider smile than usual, when Mr. Birthday admitted that he did not have a clue whose birthday they were talking about. "If you come back at 3 o'clock on Tuesday, then I will tell you whose birthday it is," said Mr. Happy. Oh, what do you think's going to happen? By Tuesday, Mr. Birthday was very, very curious. Have you guessed whose birthday it is yet? Mr. Birthday's all puzzled. Mr. Birthday turned up at Mr. Happy's house at 3 o'clock on the dot. You have got to tell me now," burst out Mr. Birthday when Mr. Happy opened the door. "With pleasure," grinned Mr. Happy. "It is your birthday. Happy birthday, Mr. Birthday," cried all the Mr. Birthday's friends. Mr. Birthday blushed. "How silly of me," he said. Mr. Birthday by Roger Hargreaves.